We're involved with the IT department, so we're sharing knowledge. And there's a formal training after that, which we get at least the people who are supporting the network on board and much more ahead of the curve when it comes to maintaining and prolonging that system.
You said there was a large component, which was the applications portion that you had to purchase. Can you give us an idea of what the magnitude of the project was, how much of it was in infrastructure, how much was in applications?
The applications piece started a year earlier, at least a year earlier. When I first joined the city in 2003, the very first thing that was thrown on my desk as the new incoming CIO was a problem from the police chief saying, I've got this, I won't give you the name, but you can talk to me offline if you like, but it was a records management system and other stuff that wasn't working, that the patrolmen were almost in open revolt against the leadership, saying, you want us to use this system, well, you can just go, go to hell. And that was my first problem to solve, was to unhook that system and get it replaced with what we now know as the New World system. That project, it was easily over $1 million to get that application brought into the city. It's a comprehensive suite of police, fire, and dispatch, communications dispatch applications, all running on a common database, and then there are interfaces from that out into the known persons database and the fingerprints and so forth. It's quite a very complex piece of application architecture. That project went through a requirements phase and then an acquisition phase and implementation, which took well over a year. And it went live about a year before the mesh network went live, about 11 months earlier. There was a mobile piece in that application suite which was designed to run on a low-speed CDPD network, which we didn't implement, and instead delayed implementation until we had the mesh network running. And then we rolled out the last, the mobile part of that application suite, some of which we'd actually turned out we didn't need because you could run the same application as if you were running at your desk, so that eliminated some training and it was just advantageous all around. So the total, if you took the whole stack from what the user sees all the way down to the physical chunk, that whole stack, we're probably talking close to $5 million for the soup to nuts. And that's spread over several years, almost 4 years of understanding requirements and finally getting something that you can use and roll out to the whole force.
And what was the hardware implementation cost? Is that the total project?
The $5 million would include the hardware, the laptops and everything. Yeah. Right.
Any other questions? I have one more question for each panelist before I give you all the details of where to go next and where the food is and all that good stuff. And we'll just go down the line starting with Chip. We saw at the beginning there were a lot of people here who are sort of just getting started and haven't built their networks yet and haven't deployed. So if you had one or two pieces of specific advice for them as they're getting started, what would be the most important thing for them to be aware of?
Good question. I hate to just kind of harp on one thing, but I would say if you can involve a wide range of user groups, talk to them about what a system can do, not overselling it, not hyping it, not talking like it deploys itself, but in terms of what the potential for a wireless backbone for the city could do. and find those user groups that are going to be most supportive, have the best use cases, have the best opportunity to turn that around and pay back, and get those signed up on your team. I can't think of anything that will make the entire rest of the process go better. That, to me, I think makes the most successful, the most fun, the quickest advantages seen out in the marketplace.
Nelson?
Yeah, if I can add to that, you know, I've seen many cases where cities put out an RFP, you know, which pretty much says, you know, we want a wireless network, you know, we want to do all these things. And at the end of that process, they are more confused than they were at the beginning. So they spend all this time, you know, this is what they think they want, because they're really concentrating, you know, on just, this sounds neat. Getting a list of all the applications, maybe that's driven out of that user group. And you know, think about once you have the network, what are you going to use it for? And coming up with a priority for all those applications will make life simpler. I mean, there's a lot of manufacturers, there's a lot of different technologies. Everybody sort of has their own vision of what a muni wireless should be like. But you're the customer at the end of the day, or the city is, and you're really dictating what that network should be like. And if you can identify what those priorities are, that'll help you select your technology and your vendors, and it'll make that your life easier. Because if you start getting too broad, then you're going to attract everybody, and all you're going to do is be confused. If you just say, well, here's what I want this network to do, you will then narrow that field down into the specifics and it'll be clear for you as to who you really should be looking at. And then take that to the RFP process, and that'll really just sort of narrow it down. It'll speed the whole thing up, and it'll reduce your costs because you're not spending it on unneeded spinning of the wheels, if you will.
Great. Charlie?
Definitely echo those comments. Know what you want to do, and as clearly as possible. As I mentioned before, what helped me enormously was to get very focused on the exact problem we were trying to solve. And we went and we got it solved. It created an RFP that was very specific. Not just anybody could respond to it. It was when you got into the details. And it made it very easy for us at the end of the day to justify the decision that we made. This decision was not the least expensive by any means, but it was the only one that could really work and meet all the requirements. The other thing, though, is there's an old rule in all systems work, application development work, which is get the right people involved in the right way. And I have to say, I'm glad I'm in this job after 30 years of being in this type of work, because all of those lessons learned in the previous 30 years came to bear. In particular, getting to know and having a good working relationship with all of the leaders that were going to be directly affected by this, from the mayor to the chief of police to the chief's command staff to the fire chief and his command staff, the other leaders in the city that were interested, and I kind of had to hold at bay and say, your time is coming, but not just yet. There are a lot of constituencies, even in a narrowly focused project like this, that have to be addressed and involved in the project so that they are constructive and not disrupting the situation.
Thank you very much. You know, it's so interesting to hear the different panelists coming up, because we're still at such an early stage of this market, and you know, kind of everybody's here is still in the early adopter and pioneer, and it's great to hear, you know, the pioneers who've come up here and have really set a trail that's been successful. So, you know, I urge you all while you're here to if you can to grab some of these guys and Mike and Tony and you know, some of the people who've really been through this and you know, have experienced some of the successes and the pitfalls. So again, panel, thanks very much. Greatly appreciate it.